Mafia boss insulted the waitress in Old Sicilian, then froze when she spoke fluently. A single dropped napkin was all it took to put a target on her back. Lucia Moretti steadied her tray as she stepped into the smoke-hazed VIP room of the waterfront nightclub. Every dealer, every enforcer, every bottle girl knew one rule: never draw the attention of Salvatore Il Falco Romano. But the napkin slipped from her wrist and fluttered onto his table. The room stilled. The mafia boss glanced down, then up at her, and muttered something sharp and ancient to his consigliere, Old Sicilian, a dialect nearly extinct. His men laughed. He assumed she couldn't understand him. He assumed she was just another silent girl serving drinks. What he didn't know was that Lucia's grandmother raised her on that forbidden dialect like it was a secret religion. She set the tray down, turned her head, and replied to the boss in flawless Old Sicilian, in the exact coastal cadence of his birthplace. The laughter died instantly. Romano went stone still. The music outside kept thumping, but in the VIP room, you could hear the ice melt in the bucket beside him. His closest enforcer uncrossed his arms. Another reached for his gun, not to draw, but because instinct told him something dangerous had just shifted. Lucia's pulse hammered, but she didn't look away. She hadn't planned this. Not the defiance, not the words, not the raw certainty that rose in her throat after months of pretending she was invisible. But humiliation had a way of ripping off masks. Romano's eyes tracked her like a predator evaluating a rival. No one spoke to him that way. No one could. Not in his own language, the one tied to blood, family, and old debts buried beneath Sicilian soil. For a full 3 seconds, the most feared man on the eastern seaboard just stared at her. Then quietly he said, "Get her out." Her manager practically dragged her from the room, whispering furiously that she was done, finished, lucky to leave with her life. Lucia barely heard him. Her mind was still back in the room with Il Falco's black eyes fixed on her like she'd just awakened a ghost. She didn't know it yet, but that moment, that single, reckless sentence, was the fuse that would ignite everything to come. By the time she reached the alley behind the club, her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. She almost let it ring out. Almost. But she answered. And the voice on the other end said only one thing. "Signorina Moretti, Mr. Romano requests your presence." Her breath caught. A summons. Not vengeance. Not punishment. Something far more dangerous. An invitation. As Lucia walked toward the waiting black sedan, she felt it, the past she tried to bury rising with every step. Because Old Sicilian wasn't just a language she'd learned. It was the last thing she had left of the person she'd sworn never to become. Dawn pressed through the cracked window of Stella's studio apartment in the Bolaro district, a pale wash of orange cutting across the stacks of half-packed boxes. She hadn't slept, not a second. Her hands still trembled from the night before, from the moment she spoke Old Sicilian to a man no one dared correct, let alone challenge. Clothes were tossed into open suitcases. Her laptop sat on the floor among scattered papers, the cursor blinking over a job application demanding professional references from previous employer. She had none now. Not after last night. Her bank app glowed on her cracked phone screen. €200 and 17 cents. Rent was due in 5 days. The security deposit gone. Her mother's next chemo session on Tuesday. €800, prepaid or no treatment. Everything in her life felt like it was collapsing inward, a slow implosion she could no longer outrun. She rubbed the exhaustion from her eyes. 6 years at Columbia, €85,000 in student loans, a PhD in Romance linguistics specializing in medieval Sicilian dialects, only to be told she was too specialized for academic hiring and too educated for normal work. 47 rejections from universities across Europe. The cruel math of failure. Too smart to waitress. Too niche to teach. Too broke to breathe. A clatter in the hallway made her jump. Any sound felt like a threat now. Because people like Matteo Messina Denaro did not forget insults. Especially not in a language tied to power, blood, and wounds older than Italy itself. Her fingers shook as she typed his name into Google. The articles hit like body blows. Captured after 30 years. Linked to bombings, murders. Victims dissolved in acid. Released on a technicality. Evidence ruled inadmissible. A line at the bottom of the page made her blood turn to ice. Sources say he is attempting to legitimize his remaining years. Her phone rang. Francesca. Stella, are you insane? Her friend hissed the moment she answered. Everyone's talking about what you did. But I didn't. Greco told the entire staff. Said you committed professional suicide. You need to leave Palermo. Tonight. I can't leave. My mother can't travel. Then disappear. Really disappear. Disappear. With 200 euros and no references? Her screen pinged. A text from Ospedale Civico. Reminder. Maria Nickel, chemo appointment Tuesday, 9 a.m. Her mother, 67, stage 3 breast cancer. American by birth, Sicilian by marriage, widowed for 10 years. She taught English until the diagnosis. Now she needed Stella more than ever. The impossible math unfurled in Stella's mind. Rent, 600. Chemo, 800. Groceries, 100. Utilities, 150. Loan payment, 420. She needed 2,070 euros. She had 200 euros. And absolutely no future. At 9:47 a.m., her phone rang again. Unknown number. Palermo area code. Her pulse stuttered. She almost let it ring out. But fear is a strange motivator. She picked up. Signorina Nickel? A woman's voice asked. Smooth. Polite.
Deadly calm.
Why, yes. This is Rosa Bianchi, calling on behalf of Dr. Denaro. Stella's stomach hollowed. Her mouth went dry. I don't. He requests a meeting. Cafe Spinato. 10 o'clock this morning. I don't. He assures your complete safety, Rosa said. He has a business proposition. A proposition? 10 o'clock, the voice repeated. He'll be waiting. The line went dead. Stella stared at her phone, frozen. Every instinct screamed run. This was how women vanished, lured to polite meetings before being swallowed by the dark. But another voice whispered, what if it's real? What if this is the only opportunity she'll ever get? She breathed through the panic. If he wanted me dead, she whispered, he wouldn't invite me to the most public cafe in Palermo. She showered, changed into black slacks and the white blouse she'd worn at her PhD defense. The last time she'd felt sure of anything. On the kitchen table, she left a note. Mom, if I'm not back by noon, call Francesca. Cafe Spinato. Denaro. A breadcrumb trail in case she never returned. At 9:35, she stepped outside. Bolaro buzzed as always. Vendors shouting prices, tourists photographing Baroque walls, children chasing pigeons. Normal life pressed around her while she walked toward a meeting that felt like a death sentence wrapped in espresso. Cafe Spinato smelled of espresso beans and sugar-dusted cannoli. The marble gleamed. Mirrors reflected gold light. At 9:55, she saw him. Back corner. Most private table. Matteo Messina Denaro. Dark shirt. No entourage. But danger radiated from him like heat. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. She did, every muscle tight, ready to bolt. He studied her. Not with contempt, but something sharper. Something measuring. My mother was from Castelvetrano, he said at last, in Old Sicilian. The words punched the air out of her lungs. She taught the old language until the day she died, he continued. You remind me of her. Sharp tongue. Sharper mind. Is that why you had me fired? Stella whispered. He slid an espresso toward her.
No.
I had you fired because you made me look foolish. Men like me cannot afford that. He leaned back, eyes unblinking. But I asked you here because you possess something I desperately need. She swallowed. And what's that? He pushed a folder across the marble. The ability, he said softly, to hear lies in 3 languages. As the folder's shadow reached her fingertips, a thought struck Stella so sharply it almost made her flinch. This is what gatekeeping looks like, how the powerful control access to opportunities not based on merit but on who serves their interests. Comment: everyone deserves fair opportunities if you believe talent should matter more than connections. Only those who profit from keeping others down would stay silent. The system is rigged, and this meeting proves it. Stella opened the folder with hands she couldn't steady. Inside lay a labyrinth of contracts in Italian and English, dense legal jargon, red-slashed annotations, financial projections, architectural renderings. A glossy photo slid loose and landed on her lap. She froze.
Corleone.
The town of legends and nightmares. Her grandmother's birthplace. A wound buried in history. Denaro watched her reaction, eyes unreadable. "Have you heard of the Sicilian American Council for Cultural Preservation?" he asked. Stella blinked. "The organization Rudolph Giuliani chairs? The one the press claims is a Cosa Nostra front." A thin smile ghosted across his face. "Accused. Never proven. Italian journalists adore conspiracy theories." He leaned forward, voice lowering like he was letting her in on a secret. "The council is negotiating with Sicily's regional government," he said. "A €300 million development project, turning Corleone into a world-class heritage tourism site." Stella's breath caught. Museums, cultural centers, preservation of dialect and tradition, Denaro continued. Thousands of jobs for one of the poorest regions on the island. And, she asked, because men like him never told stories without a darker turn. And it's collapsing. He pulled out a packet of pages and placed them side by side. Stella leaned in. The discrepancies were immediate, glaring. "The Italian and English contracts do not match," he said. "Italian lawyers keep inserting clauses that contradict the American versions." "Giuliani thinks the regional government is lying," she murmured. "And Governor Scafani thinks the Americans are trying to steal Sicilian land." Denaro's tone hardened. "Both sides are hours away from abandoning the deal forever." Stella studied the text again, forehead creased. "But why sabotage economic development?" He looked away, jaw flexing. "Because some men profit from chaos, Dottoressa." His voice went quiet. "Rival families, corrupt politicians, criminals who want Corleone forgotten and controllable. They would rather see my mother's village die than lose their power." He tapped one page. Article 47, subsection 3. Stella scanned the text. Italian version, partnership rights to development revenues. English version, advisory consultation. A deliberate trap. "This isn't a translation error," she whispered. "It's fraud." Precisament. She exhaled shakily. "Who's translating these?" "Professor Vincenzo Caruso, University of Catania." Stella's head snapped up. Caruso was famous in her field, respected, untouchable. "He's been the official translator for 15 years, Denaro said. "Credentials impeccable. Reputation immaculate. Which is exactly why he was chosen for corruption," she finished. Denaro nodded once. "I need you in Rome next week. Final negotiation. Giuliani, Scafani, their entire legal teams. You'll sit in the corner as a linguistic consultant. But your real job is simple: expose Caruso's lies." Her mind spun. "Why should I help you? You're a criminal." He didn't blink. "I'm offering you €100,000 for 1 week's work." Her heart slammed against her ribs. That money would change everything. Her mother's chemo, her rent, her survival. "And, because if this deal dies," he added softly, "Old Sicilian dies with it. Your dissertation becomes an obituary." She looked at the folder. At Corleone. At the future of a language that lived only in the throats of the elderly. And who's paying Caruso to sabotage this? The Santoro family. They control smuggling routes through Corleone. Tourism brings police. Police ruin business. Stella inhaled slowly, grounding herself. €150,000, she said finally. And a letter of recommendation from someone legitimate. Denaro's eyebrows rose. €150,000, he repeated. "And Rudolph Giuliani himself will write your recommendation. Former mayor of New York. Current chair of the council." He extended his hand across the marble table. Do we have an agreement, Dotteressa Nickel? She stared at his hand. A pact with a monster to save her mother. A deal with a criminal to preserve a dying language. Morality twisted into impossible knots. But she had no other choice. She took his hand. We do. His grip was warm, steady, almost gentle. You leave for Rome Thursday. Rosa will arrange everything. Train, hotel, stipend. Study every discrepancy Caruso created. And Dotteressa, he held her gaze. Expose him, and you won't just save a village. You'll destroy a criminal network 30 years old. He released her hand. Affari fatu. Outside, Palermo's sun hit her like a spotlight. In her bag, a €300 million deal. In her chest, terror and something that almost felt like hope. She walked home, mind churning. This is what a broken system creates. Impossible choices where doing the right thing requires working with the wrong people. Like this video if you believe corruption should be exposed regardless of who exposes it. Only corrupt academics and dirty politicians who profit from this kind of fraud won't. Sometimes fighting evil requires uncomfortable alliances. By Monday morning, Stella's apartment had transformed into a war room. Contracts covered the couch. Translation printouts buried the coffee table. Financial projections were taped across the wall like a conspiracy map. Her laptop displayed a growing spreadsheet logging every discrepancy she found in Professor Caruso's work. By noon, she had identified 47 mistranslations across nearly 200 pages. And they weren't mistakes. Each one sharpened tension on issues Italians and Americans had clashed over for decades: land ownership, revenue rights, cultural control, employment terms. She felt sick. Caruso wasn't translating. He was weaponizing language. By mid-afternoon, she couldn't stop researching him. Professor Vincenzo Caruso, age 58. Distinguished Chair at University of Catania. 25 years of spotless service. Books published. Awards earned. Consulted for the European Commission. A man revered by her entire field. How does someone like this become corrupt? She whispered to herself, scrolling through his glowing biography.
She didn't have the answer.
But the pattern in his sabotage was too precise to be anything but intentional. Tuesday, meeting Rosa Bianchi. Rosa arrived punctually at 2. Elegant. Mid-50s. Tailored navy suit. Hair pinned with surgical precision. Yet her eyes carried a warmth that surprised Stella. I work for Dottor Denaro, she said as Stella let her in, but not in the way you think. She explained she'd once been a lawyer, brilliant, respected, until certain circumstances forced a career shift. Now she managed Denaro's legitimate business interests. He's trying to clean up his legacy, Dotteressa. This project matters to him. Rosa placed a thick folder on the table. Stella hesitated, then opened it. Bank records. Wire transfers. €500,000 funneled to Caruso through shell companies over 6 months. Then photographs. Caruso meeting with known associates of the Santoro family. We have proof, Rosa said, but illegally obtained. We need him to expose himself in Rome, on record. Stella felt her pulse thrum. And how exactly do I help with that? Rosa sat across from her. By catching him in real time. She explained the plan. Stella would sit quietly as linguistic consultant. When she detected a mistranslation, she would signal, pen to her lips for minor issues, pen parallel to paper for major discrepancies, legs crossed for deliberate omissions. Franco Vitali would then request clarification, forcing Caruso to repeat himself. They'd feed him obscure old Sicilian legal terms to test whether he truly understood the language. A linguistic trap. Elegant.
Deadly.
Learning the players. Rosa handed Stella dossiers on each major figure. Rudolph Giuliani, controversial, unpredictable, but genuinely invested in preservation. Governor Renato Schifani, Palermo-born, one of the few officials fluent in Old Sicilian. The Santoro family, violent, entrenched in smuggling and narcotics, set to lose millions if the Corleone project succeeded. If we win, Rosa said softly, 5,000 jobs come to Corleone and an entire language lives. A shadow crossed her expression. Matteo's mother died in poverty in Castelvetrano. He couldn't save her, but he can save what she loved. For the first time, Stella saw the human beneath the criminal. Wednesday, visiting her mother. Her mother lay fragile beneath hospital sheets, recovering from chemo. Stella held her hand and forced a smile. I got a consulting job in Rome, Mama. A big translation project. They're paying well. Her mother squeezed weakly, pride softening her tired eyes. Your grandfather always said Old Sicilian was treasure. I'm going to save it, Stella whispered. I promise. Thursday, training with Franco. Franco arrived at dawn, a thick-necked man with gentle manners. He drilled her on the signals. Repetition. Precision. Natural movement under pressure. You'll be on camera, he reminded her. Don't flinch. Don't hesitate. Stella didn't sleep that night. She stared at the moonlit streets of Palermo, wrestling with impossible questions. Was she doing the right thing? Could a criminal help her fight corruption? Could she justify working with darkness to protect something pure? There were no clean answers. Only necessity. Packing for Rome. Thursday morning, she packed deliberately. 1 black suit. 1 white blouse. Minimal jewelry. Her dissertation. Notebook, pens. Phone charger. Photo of her mother. As she zipped the suitcase, a thought rose. Sharp. Burning. Impossible to ignore. This is what systematic corruption looks like. Respected professionals selling out entire communities for money. Subscribe if you can't stand corrupt academics who exploit positions of trust while pretending to serve the public good. Only those who profit from these scams would defend Professor Caruso. The system protects people like him while punishing people like my mother. She closed the suitcase and exhaled. Rome was waiting. And so was the truth. The train left Palermo as a thin silver line against the dawn. Stella sat in a first-class compartment, something she never imagined herself in, surrounded by leather seats, dark wood paneling, and an attendant who politely refilled her espresso. Outside, the Sicilian countryside blurred into morning gold. Villages her grandfather once described drifted past, places where old Sicilians still whispered in markets and courtyards. Franco Vitali sat across from her, hands folded, expression unreadable. Nervous? He asked in Old Sicilian. Terrified.
Good.
Fear keeps you sharp. Overconfidence gets you killed. She almost laughed. Almost. Tumini Station was a storm of noise. Tourists shouting, luggage wheels screeching, trains hissing steam. A black Mercedes waited at the curb, windows tinted, engine humming. The driver opened the door without a word. For the entire ride, Stella watched Rome pass by, the Colosseum, ancient facades, cobblestone alleys, but her nerves swallowed any awe. Franco watched the streets instead, ever vigilant. They turned toward the heart of Italian power, Palazzo Chigi. Guards in ceremonial uniforms stood rigid beside marble columns. Stella moved through metal detectors and document checks until a laminated badge hung around her neck. Dr. Stella Nickel, linguistic consultant. It didn't feel real. Not yet. Rosa was already waiting, expression razor-focused. Caruso arrived an hour ago. Giuliani's team landed this morning. Scafani brought his entire legal staff. This is it. She handed Stella a sealed envelope, her official role, and the phrases designed to trap Caruso. Remember, Rosa said, lowering her voice, you're here to verify archaic old Sicilian terms. Nothing else. That's your cover. Stella nodded, though her throat was tight. In the hallway she saw him. Professor Vincenzo Caruso. Perfectly tailored suit. Polished shoes. Leather briefcase. A man who looked exactly like integrity. He swept past her without a single glance. To him, she wasn't worth noticing. His last mistake. The room itself was intimidating, frescoed ceilings, a long mahogany table, national flags, cameras capturing every moment. Caruso set up at his translator's station with practiced precision. Stella's desk was small, tucked into a corner, but positioned perfectly to hear everything. Giuliani arrived first, storm of impatience in human form. The linguistic expert? he asked, shaking her hand.
Good.
We need clarity. This negotiation's been a disaster. Then came Governor Renato Scafani, stern, proud, already defensive. We will not sign away Sicily's cultural patrimony, he said in Italian, voice like stone cracking. The tension in the room sharpened. The professor adjusted his microphone, projected calm authority. I've been translating international contracts for 25 years, he said. We'll have clarity today. Rosa's eyes narrowed. Franco leaned toward Stella. Matteo's watching everything. Secure feed. Do your job, we'll do ours. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Governor Scafani began, outlining Sicily's commitment to cultural preservation. Caruso translated smoothly into English, except Stella froze mid-note. Mistranslation. A deliberate one. Scafani said equal sharing of cultural management. Caruso said Italian oversight. Her pen touched her lips, the first signal. Franco stood. Requested clarification in Old Sicilian. Caruso's translation twisted again. The first crack appeared. For the next half hour, Caruso manipulated every core issue. Revenue sharing, Italian profit priority. Collaborative employment, American hiring control. Shared governance, Italian authority. Each shift subtle enough to seem plausible, toxic enough to ignite both sides. Stella signaled again. And again. 12 times. Until the room exploded. Giuliani slammed his palm on the table. Scafani rose angrily. Delegations argued in overlapping languages. Caruso sat still, playing the harmless mediator. We're simply experiencing linguistic differences, he said smoothly. Lying through perfect teeth. 10:30 a.m. The air was too thick to continue. A break was announced. Stella slipped into the hallway with Rosa. 12 mistranslations already, Stella whispered. All designed to sabotage. Rosa's jaw tightened. Then we expose him.
Soon.
Before this deal dies. Across the corridor, Caruso sipped espresso calmly, as if he hadn't just set fire to 8 months of negotiation. Stella stared at him, fury rising. This is what professional fraud looks like. Respected experts destroying lives while hiding behind flawless reputations. Comment, I stand against corruption if you believe people like Caruso should be held accountable no matter their credentials. Only those who profit from corruption defend him. And what happens next changes everything. At 10:45 a.m., everyone filed back into the conference room. Tension clung to the air like humidity before a storm. Giuliani's team sat stiffly, whispering about walking out. Governor Scafani's delegation muttered angrily in rapid-fire Italian. Caruso returned to his seat wearing the same confident smirk, as if the morning hadn't exposed the cracks forming beneath his carefully polished reputation. Stella gripped her pen. Her pulse thrummed. She had one job. Expose him. Cleanly. Publicly. On record. Franco stood first, addressing Scafani in Old Sicilian, so precise, even Stella felt a ripple of awe. Udrita di comprimentari. Her breath caught. An 1800s property law term, so obscure it barely existed outside handwritten archives. She had studied it for months during her dissertation. The phrase meant a reciprocal obligation between property partners. A symmetrical legal concept, never one-sided. Scafani nodded, responding using the same archaic framework. Comprimentari obbligazioni, he agreed. Caruso translated smoothly into English. Italy maintains superior land rights. Stella's heart slammed against her ribs. That wasn't a mistranslation. That was murder. He had just twisted a reciprocal obligation into unilateral power, guaranteed to ignite conflict. She placed her pen parallel to the paper. The signal. Franco pounced instantly. Professor Caruso, could you explain how comprimentari became superior rights? That's not standard translation. Caruso's smile faltered. It's a technical legal interpretation. Old Sicilian has multiple contextual meanings. Franco tilted his head. But comprimentari specifically means reciprocal, does it not? A bead of sweat appeared near Caruso's temple. Well, in modern legal context, I interpret it. Stella rose from her seat. Her voice cut the room in half.
No.
That's incorrect. All eyes turned. Caruso's jaw clenched. "Excuse me," he snapped. "I'm the official translator." "And I," Stella said calmly, "am the linguistic consultant brought here specifically to verify old Sicilian terminology." She walked to the front, opening her dissertation to the exact page. "I wrote my PhD on medieval Sicilian legal dialects. The term complementari appears consistently in property contracts from the 1820s to 1860s. She held up the page. "It always means complementary obligations between equal partners. There is no interpretation where it means superior rights." Her gaze locked onto Caruso. "You either don't understand the language, or you're deliberately mistranslating it." He reddened. "Dr. Nickel, I've been translating for 25 years. "Then you should know better," she said. She opened her notebook. "For the past 40 minutes, I've documented systematic mistranslations. Every single one designed to create conflict." Giuliani frowned. Scafani stiffened. Stella played the recordings. "Scafani, condivision paritaria, equals sharing. Caruso's translation, Italian oversight." Gasps spread through the room. 3 more examples followed, each one worse than the last. Giuliani's expression darkened into cold fury. "Professor Caruso," Stella said, voice steady, "you have been intentionally mistranslating both sides." She flipped to the printed contracts. "The original language guarantees a 60-40 partnership with shared governance. You told each delegation the other demanded total control." She laid the contracts side by side. "Someone paid you to kill this deal." Caruso's face drained of color. "This is absurd," he sputtered. "I've dedicated my career." "To whom?" Franco asked quietly. "And for how much?" Caruso's mouth opened, but no words emerged. Scafani barked an order. 2 uniformed carabinieri entered, boots echoing on marble. "Professor Vincenzo Caruso," the lead officer announced, "you are under investigation for fraud and sabotage of government negotiations." Caruso stiffened. "You can't prove." The door opened. Rosa stepped inside, carrying a tablet. "Actually, we can." She placed it before him. Euro 500,000 transferred from Santoro shell companies. Photos of you meeting known criminals. Phone records. Everything. Caruso stared, horror spreading across his face. His shoulders sagged. "They threatened my family," he whispered. "Said they'd hurt my grandchildren if I didn't sabotage the project. I didn't want to." Franco's eyes hardened. "You always have a choice." The officers cuffed him. "You sold out Sicily for blood money," Scafani said as they led Caruso away. The professor's protests echoed down the hall, fading. Silence thickened. Giuliani turned to Stella. "How long have you known?" "Since last week," she said. "But we needed him to incriminate himself on record. Evidence we had was inadmissible." Scafani stepped forward. "Dr. Nickel, Sicily thanks you." Rosa cleared her throat. "I'm a licensed legal translator. I can complete today's negotiation, unless you prefer someone independent." Giuliani and Scafani exchanged a long look. "Let's finish this," Giuliani said. "We've wasted 8 months." As Caruso was led away, Stella felt a tremor of grim justice. This is what accountability looks like, powerful people finally facing consequences for corruption. Hit subscribe if you believe corrupt professionals should be exposed and prosecuted, no matter how prestigious their positions. Only those who profit from broken systems would defend people like Caruso. Justice isn't always instant, but it's worth fighting for. Rosa took her place at the translator's station with the calm of someone who had nothing to hide. She clicked on her microphone. "Let's begin with Article 1, she said. The actual Article 1, not Caruso's version. She translated with surgical precision.
Clean.
Neutral.
Honest.
It took less than 30 seconds for everyone to realize the difference. Giuliani straightened. "Wait, this actually sounds reasonable." Governor Scafani rubbed his forehead. "This is what we proposed in the first month. Exactly this." Article 2 followed. Then 3. Then 4. Every single one aligned. The 8-month war between delegations evaporated like smoke. As Rosa continued, the truth crystallized. They had been in agreement the entire time. Caruso had manufactured every conflict, every accusation, every heated argument, every walkout threat. The real contract was simple. A 60-40 revenue split. Shared governance. Local employment priority. Cultural preservation as the primary mandate. Giuliani let out an incredulous laugh. 8 months. 8 months of that bastard playing us like puppets. Stella worked beside Rosa, verifying every old Sicilian reference. When obscure property terms surfaced, she stepped in. This term from 1843 Palermo property law means. This phrase appears in agrarian contracts from the 1860s. She removed ambiguity the way surgeons remove tumors. Gradually, both delegations began addressing her directly. Dr. Nickel, can you clarify this clause? Daughteressa, is this term reciprocal or hierarchical? She wasn't background noise anymore. She was indispensable. During the afternoon break, Scafani approached her, speaking in Old Sicilian. Where did you learn our language? My grandfather. From Castelvetrano. He spoke it until he died. Scafani's eyes warmed. My grandmother was from there. They shared memories, echoes of grandparents who carried dialects like sacred heirlooms, who told stories of vineyards, mountain festivals, sun-drenched summers before modernization swept everything away. This project matters, Scafani said quietly. Not just for the economy, for our identity, for what people like your grandfather knew. For the first time, Stella felt the weight of what she was saving. By 4 p.m., they had reviewed the entire contract. No discrepancies. No deception. Only partnership. Giuliani's senior lawyer exhaled. This is one of the best cultural preservation deals I've seen. Scafani's team nodded.
Fair.
Transparent. Balanced. The 300 million euros project, 8 months in limbo, was back on track. At 5:30 p.m., fresh documents were printed in Italian, English, and the Old Sicilian appendix Stella had personally verified. Giuliani and Scafani sat across from each other, not as adversaries, but as collaborators. They picked up their pens.
Signed.
Flashbulbs from cameras lit the room, capturing history. 300 million euros invested into cultural preservation. 5,000 jobs for Corleone. Museums, archives, restoration projects. Old Sicilian officially saved from extinction. Scafani stood, clearing his throat. This deal nearly died because of one man's greed, he said. It survived because of one woman's courage. He gestured toward Stella. Dr. Nickel risked everything to expose the truth. She saved not just this negotiation, but my culture, my language, my heritage. Applause erupted. Delegates from both nations stood. Stella felt her cheeks burn, but also something fierce inside her. Purpose. Giuliani approached her after the signing. So, Matteo Denaro recruited you. He shook his head. That's a plot twist no one saw coming. He extended his hand. Criminal or not, he chose well. And you have my gratitude. He leaned closer. Whatever recommendation you need, I'll write it. Colombia would be lucky to have you. Hell, they should hire you. That evening, a small reception filled a Roman palazzo with champagne, cannoli, and laughter. Americans and Sicilians mingled as if the last 8 months had been a bad dream. But Stella stood apart on a balcony, overlooking the courtyard. She had saved a negotiation and a language. But had she saved herself? Franco joined her. Matteo wants to see you tomorrow, before you head back to Palermo. He paused. He has the payment. And something else. Her stomach tightened. The job was done. But the story wasn't. Back in her luxury suite, she stood at the window, Rome glittering beneath her. In her bag lay the recording of Caruso's arrest. In her mind, guilt, pride, moral conflict twisted together. She called her mother. Mama, the job went well. Really well. Her mother's tired voice brightened. I'm proud of you, Tesoro. Your grandfather is smiling somewhere. Stella closed her eyes. I hope so. On the balcony, she whispered. This is what real change requires, exposing corruption even when the system protects it. Share this video if you believe ordinary people can fight powerful systems and win. Only those who benefit from corruption would want this story buried. One person can make a difference. Friday morning, 8 a.m., Stella met Franco in the hotel lobby. He wore the same expressionless professionalism as always, but today his voice was softer. Ready? He asked. Not even close, she murmured. They drove through Rome's outskirts, past sprawling estates and ancient stone walls. At the end of a long cypress-lined road, guarded gates opened onto a historic villa surrounded by olive trees older than most countries. Matteo owns this, Franco explained. One of his few legitimate holdings. Family estate. The villa. The Renaissance villa was stunning, frescoed ceilings, marble floors, art worth millions. But woven between the luxury were children's toys, old family photos, shelves of worn books. Not a criminal fortress. A home. Matteo Messina Denaro waited in the library, surrounded by towering bookshelves. He looked different than the man she'd seen in the restaurant or even at the cafe. Older. Tired. Human. Simple clothing. Reading glasses. A book of Sicilian poetry in hand. Dr. Nickel, he said, rising. Grazie. Thank you. In Old Sicilian. The payment. He slid an envelope across the polished desk. Euro 150,000, as agreed, he said. Plus 50,000 euro bonus. You did more than expose Caruso. You saved the negotiation. Stella lifted the envelope. Heavy. Solid. Life-changing. And Giuliani's recommendation letter? In your email, he replied. Already signed. Her breath shivered. Everything she'd needed for years landed in her hands in a single moment. The real conversation. Why did you really hire me? She asked. He set down his glasses. The hardness she'd always associated with him slipped away. Because I saw my mother in you, he said. A brilliant woman trapped by circumstance. She taught Old Sicilian in Castelvetrano for 40 years. Died poor. Forgotten. Watching her language die with her. He swallowed. I can't undo my past. I was released on a technicality, but I'm guilty. No excuses. He stared into the middle distance. I maybe have 10 years left. Maybe less. I want them to mean something other than killing. The project's real purpose. The Corleone project isn't about tourism, he continued. It's about saving what my mother loved. Old Sicilian, traditional crafts, village culture. 5,000 jobs means young people stay. Means the language survives another generation. Means Castelvetrano won't become a ghost town. He walked to the window, gesturing toward the olive groves. Sicily deserves better than men like me. The proposition. The Sicilian American Council wants to hire you permanently, he said. Stella blinked. Director of Linguistic Services. 200,000 euros annually. UNESCO partnerships. You document dying dialects before they disappear. Travel village to village, record every elder who still remembers. He met her eyes. You'd build the archive that saves our island soul. Stella's hesitation. Working for an organization you fund? She asked. That Giuliani chairs? The one the press says is a mafia front. It's legitimate, he insisted. Investigated twice, cleared twice. Yes, I'm involved. Yes, I have a past. But this work, this preservation, it's real. She wanted to believe him. She feared believing him. What happens to the Santoro family? She asked. Authorities raided their operations last night, he said. 14 arrests. Their Corleone network dismantled. Your evidence triggered the warrants. He stepped closer. You destroyed their power. You saved that town. Her knees felt weak. Her conditions. If I accept, she said quietly, I have conditions. Denaro almost smiled. I expected nothing less. First, Stella said, a scholarship fund for Sicilian women studying linguistics. Named for your mother. Full funding. No strings. He nodded. Done. Second, she said, a documentary archive of old Sicilian speakers. Every village, every dialect. Donated globally. His eyes shone. My mother would have loved that. He extended his hand. This time, it wasn't a deal with a criminal. It was a promise to the island itself. One more thing, he said softly. He opened a drawer, withdrawing a small, worn book, hand-stitched, leather cracked from age. My mother's diary, he said. Written entirely in Old Sicilian. I can't read it. Would you translate it? Stella opened it. The handwriting flowed like poetry. A dying language whispering from faded pages. It would be an honor, she said. For the first time, she saw tears in his eyes. Not a monster. A son. I'll accept the position, Stella said. Not because I forgive your past, but because the future matters more. Languages are dying. Cultures are disappearing. If working with you saves them, that's what I'll do. Denaro nodded. Affari fatu.
Deal done.
The final words. As she turned to leave, he spoke in Old Sicilian. E ora travagaiam pai no dimenticare. And now we work so we never forget. Stella replied. Pai tutti I nani ca and I insignaru. Pai tutti I pixelidri ca venenu. For all the grandparents who taught us. For all the children who come after. She walked out with the diary and the payment. This is what complicated redemption looks like, imperfect people doing good despite dark pasts. Comment, culture matters more than purity if you believe preserving dying languages is worth working with unlikely allies. Only rigid moralists who've never faced impossible choices would judge her. Sometimes, saving the future requires accepting the past. Stella's office didn't look like the workspace of a former waitress. It looked like a command center for saving a dying world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Palermo's skyline. Maps of Sicilian dialects covered the walls. Photos from her fieldwork, elder speakers, village gatherings, handwritten samples, chronicled half a year of relentless work. On her desk sat the fully translated diary of Lorenza Messina Denaro. Her nameplate gleamed. Dr. Stella Nickel, Director of Linguistic Services. 6 months since the Rome negotiation. Everything had changed. She traveled to 47 villages, hiked through mountains, drunk bitter coffee with elders who were the last speakers of a language fading like smoke. She'd recorded 183 oral histories, mapped generational variations, and built an archival database already accessed by universities worldwide. Her preliminary findings had just been published. Her inbox flooded with requests for interviews, collaborations, lectures. In Castelvetrano, a film crew captured an 89-year-old woman reciting childhood stories in Old Sicilian, phrases no dictionary had ever recorded. Stella translated each line on the spot, preserving meaning the way one saves an ember before the fire dies. This is what we're saving, she told the camera. Not just words, worlds. The Lorenza Messina Denaro Scholarship was fully operational. 5 young women had earned full funding for their linguistic degrees. The interviews had been Stella's favorite part. She saw her younger self in each nervous smile. Your education matters, she told them. Don't let anyone decide your worth for you. The mother. The hospital looked different now. So did her mother. Sitting upright, smiling.
Alive.
You did it, Tesoro, her mother whispered. You saved the language. And you saved me. Stella swallowed hard. Nano would be proud. He already is, her mother said, squeezing her hand. The University of Palermo offered her a visiting professorship. Columbia sent formal congratulations, followed by a subtle invitation to return. UNESCO wanted her to present a new model for language preservation in Brussels. 6 months ago, she was invisible. Now, the world was paying attention. Construction cranes dotted the skyline of Corleone. The new Heritage Center was rising stone by stone. A language preservation wing was hiring teachers. Villages saw businesses reopening. Young people were returning instead of fleeing. The project was real, impactful,
alive.
Once a month they met at Café Spinedo, the same corner table as always. Denaro looked healthier, as if purpose were medicine. Stella slid a bound volume across the table. The translated diary. He opened it and read. Lines about teaching children about the heartbreak of watching old Sicilian fade to about her dream that, somehow, someone would save it. She wrote this 2 weeks before she died, he whispered. She hoped it would survive. He looked at Stella, eyes wet. You made her hope real. I'm not the man I was, Denaro said. I can't undo the lives I destroyed. But maybe good can outlive me. Maybe this, what you've built, can be my legacy. It's what your mother wanted, Stella replied. News of the Corleone model spread across Italy. Sardinia, Calabria, and the Aeolian Islands reached out. Stella's work, combining community trust with academic rigor, was succeeding where traditional research failed. Next month, she'd speak before the European Commission. A former waitress addressing international policymakers. A 19-year-old girl entered her office one afternoon, hands shaking. Dr. Nickel? I'm Maria, from Corleone. I want to apply for the scholarship, but my family says linguistics is useless. Stella smiled softly. Your grandmother's words are priceless. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. She handed her the form. The world needs people who remember. That evening, Stella walked through Palermo's ancient streets. 6 months ago, she'd been broke, humiliated, directionless. Now she was rebuilding a culture. And yes, she worked with a man whose past was unforgivable. But the results were undeniable. Language saved, villages revived, futures rewritten. Sometimes righteousness came second to impact. She paused outside Ristorante Lucia, where everything began. New staff, new decor, same room where one insult changed her life. She smiled and kept walking. Back home, she opened her dictionary draft, 1,200 pages and growing. She wrote the dedication. For my grandfather who taught me the words. For Lorenza, who wanted them preserved. For everyone ever called stupid for knowing their heritage. Travagaiamu pai no dimenticare. We work so we never forget. This story began with an insult and ended with redemption, not just for Stella, but for an entire culture. Subscribe, like, and share if you believe one person's courage can change broken systems. Comment, I stand for preservation if you believe dying languages deserve to live. Only those who profit from erasure would stay silent. Your voice matters. Your heritage matters. Never forget that.